Hello there.
You know what I've come for. This is the way.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Hello and welcome back to the Pod Awakens Star Wars fan podcast. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and I have our co-host Logan Stump.
Howdy.
And Matt Hartgrove.
Hey there.
And today we are going to be breaking down some of the latest news. And we'll also start our rewatch of Mandalorian Season One and talk about Chapter 1, The Mandalorian. So, got a jam-packed episode for you guys today. But first, let's check in with our co-hosts. Logan Stump, how has your week been? How has your time been since the last time we recorded the Pod Awakens, which I think was
good Lord,
around the time of Rise of Skywalker, but
right.
A lot has happened.
I think
since
Matt was on the last episode that we did.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like back in December or something. Life is going on. I mean, we're all quarantined, sort of halfway still, it seems. Just trying to enjoy life and sports as they exist. And, I think in 2023 we'll eventually get some kind of Star Wars stuff again.
Yeah.
It's the way it seems.
It does seem that way. It's part of our
seems like
news.
It's insane. But Matt and I, luckily, I got to ride Rise of the Resistance, so that was my first time there. That was an amazing experience. I can't wait for Jordan to see that, because I think out of all of us, he's the biggest fan of them all. So I'm excited to see what you do that.
I can't wait either. We're tentatively scheduled for the end of September. We'll see how that goes. I know it's probably a good time to go with it, in the sense of crowds, but in safety, it may not be the best time to go, but I guess we'll see. I'm kind of playing it by ear right now, seeing how we do that. How's your, for people that don't know, Matt is new to Star Wars, really, right? Like, started around the time of
when Disney Plus.
Yeah, there you go, on Disney Plus. So, have you watched them again recently at all? Have you explored Star Wars recently, other than Rise of Skywalker and what we're about to talk about, Mandalorian?
No, haven't really gotten a chance. Just been watching other stuff, and playing Fallen Order was nice because it was kind of gave a little bit more insight. So I got to see new planets and everything, but I haven't really attempted to watch it. I've either been playing video games or watching Criminal Minds, so I just haven't seen any of it. So it was fun to watch Mandalorian. I saw Mandalorian episode 1 before I saw any of the episode movies.
Oh yeah, because you had seen Solo, right?
I saw Solo. Solo was technically the first thing of Star Wars I ever saw.
Well, it wasn't Force Awakens. Didn't you go see that?
Oh shoot! You know what? I always forget that I did see that because I didn't even know what was happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, technically that would have been first. I saw Solo because I actually wanted to see Solo.
Okay.
And then I saw Mandalorian episode 1 the day it came out after work. My roommate was watching it with a friend of ours, and then I saw. I think I watched all the movies besides Rise of Skywalker before I started watching the episodes.
Oh, okay.
So I did kind of move quick, but yeah, I'm still pretty new to everything.
Yeah, it's interesting that you have a unique perspective on Star Wars as somebody that is around our age, but only really started watching it in like the last half a year or so. What drew you to Solo? Was it Donald Glover? What was it that made you say, I need to go see this? and not see any of the other movies.
So, it kind of was him. I love the previews. Actually made it look really cool. And I think him in the preview was part of the reason. I don't know if it's his acting skill or just how he played Lando. But then the guy who plays Han, I just thought the whole preview was really cool. I had no idea like Paul Bettany was going to be. I didn't put any of that together until much later that like Paul Bettany was in it, and he's Vision. And I also saw Game of Thrones last year, so I didn't know that. Clark. I didn't realize that was Daenerys until like. I don't even know. It might have been when we were podcasting over quarantine that I finally or maybe, no. We Rachel and I watched it. We watched Solo, and she mentioned that Emma Clark is in it, and I was like, oh my god, that's Daenerys. And then I finally put two and two together. It really was the preview, but also because it was kind of more standalone.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like going into it I was gonna need like a huge background. So.
Solo is great too. I love that was one that Joy could not really get behind, but I enjoyed it. Yeah, it took me by surprise. It really felt Star Wars. It was a movie I wasn't really looking forward to in the sense of when they first announced it. I was like, but we're gonna have to recast, and you're gonna have to find somebody like Harrison Ford, but Alden really made the role his own, and I really thought his. While he doesn't look like him, his acting, he does a lot of the same sort of mannerisms at times, and I think he really nailed it. And then on top of that, Donald Glover is fantastic. So, all right, well, we caught everybody up. We're gonna that's it. I'm just kidding. We're gonna talk some news here before we break down our episode here. So there was a new animated series announced. For next year. And this was announced back in just a few weeks ago. It is called The Bad Batch. So it says they just ordered the series this month, but if it's premiering next year, the way animation works is that they have to be working on this stuff for a few years. So that means that they've been working on The Bad Batch for a while. This is a spin-off of the Clone Wars and takes place pretty much immediately after the Clone Wars. And the Bad Batch appeared in the first arc of the 7th and final season of the Clone Wars. And now it makes sense why they included that Bad Batch arc instead of another arc that isn't as much filler. It's because they were probably testing it out as a series and getting those characters introduced for this series. So here's a summary I'm going to give you. This is from StarWars.com. Members of the Bad Batch, a unique squad of clones who vary genetically from their brothers in the clone army. Each possesses a singular exceptional skill which makes them extraordinarily effective soldiers and a formidable crew. In the post-Clone War era, they will take on daring mercenary missions as they struggle to stay afloat and find new purpose. So, when I first heard this news, I was a little perplexed because the Bad Batch was, like 2 or 3 episodes, and they were all right. I didn't think they would make a whole show about them, but from what I'm hearing rumors of, it sounds like it's going to bridge the gap even more between Clone Wars and Rebels and, a post-Order 66 world for our clone troopers to see how... did the Bad Batch execute Order 66? Or did they, because of these genetically enhancements that they have, not go through with it for whatever reason? That's the kind of questions I'm thinking they're going to answer in the show. As people that have not watched the Clone Wars, what are your guys' thoughts on Bad Batch animated series?
I think it's interesting. Clone Force 99.
Yeah.
No, I like it because I think, I think with even when you see, and this is unrelated, but when you see Finn break off of his, his mind of being a stormtrooper and stuff, and even a clone, I think that would be cool to see. I think it'd be cool to see Rogue clones kind of doing their own thing, and giving them different, personalities and stuff. When I was reading this, for some reason, it reminded me of Ninja Turtles. I was
I can see
it kind of has like that feel to it. Each of them have their own special abilities and stuff.
So what they are, they have like genetic mutations that they put into these clones. So like one of them has really good eyesight, so he's like the sniper. You got one of them that has really good senses, so he can like, you know how like in the movies sometimes Native Americans will touch the ground and put their ear to the ground, they'll be like, oh, they went west, that guy can kind of do that kind of stuff. And you have one that's really good with gadgets and one that's really strong, so that's kind of the makeup of the team.
I think it's very like not crime movie, but like not Ocean's 11, obviously, because of how many.
18.
But it has like that kind of.
It's very 18.
It's got like the different type of specialty characters, and if they go on like missions, I could see that being pretty similar to those kind of like shows and movies.
And here they are, like breaking off from the traditional Jedi. I mean, that's ultimately what I know that Kennedy wanted to do, and I know Star Wars was heading in that direction, and I think it breaks away from that, and I know we'll get in more with that with Mando, but it is nice to see them finally break away even more and give us new stuff.
Absolutely. One other thing about that too, there's a rumor that there is a Rebels sequel as well coming down the pipe, but I guess the Bad Batch is further ahead of that. So, but this is good for Disney. Animation has not really been affected that much by the pandemic as much. So the fact that this show can keep on track, and they'll be releasing this next year with little issue. So. Moving on from that, they didn't give us any sort of time frame, just next year. So I'm assuming maybe summer or late next year. Specifically as well, if Mando can't get going for season 3 on time, I would say maybe late next year. Obi-Wan production on the series for the Obi-Wan Disney Plus series is slated to begin in March of 2021. I take this with a grain of salt. While this is the plan, as we've seen with COVID-19, doesn't care about our plans at all. I mean, that sounds great because remember they had script issues, they had to push back production. They brought somebody else in to do passes on the script again. So if they're slated to start in March, that sounds like they at least know what they're doing now, which feels good. But like I said, the pandemic doesn't really care about our plans. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think this actually starts on time? We'll start with Matt this time.
No. I don't think anything really can.
And production would be in LA, I think, too, with the volume. So that could be a factor as well.
Obviously I would love it, but I just don't think you can really put any type of time frame on any theatrical or TV show production filming. It's just too hard, and I don't see how they might get that done, especially because we're expecting it to get worse again in the fall, which will push everything else back again. But I hope it is. I just really don't have much hope right now.
Logan, what's your thoughts? Do you think that this has a good shot?
No, and like you and I talked about way back, I remember talking about this, and there were even times where I thought they might even just give this the axe anyway. And with all the struggles they've had with script writing and finding people to actually direct it and what direction they wanted to go with Obi-Wan, and I think finding different elements and really just going out to a hot spot to film isn't ideal. And like Matt said, anything in person, I just feel like now, and I'm to the point where you're not going to be able to start anything until beginning of next year, probably, around February, March, maybe. So I don't think that's realistic, and I don't really want them to rush this one. because I think this one might have a chance to be one of the better ones anyway. Just because of, and when you read through it, it's got all the makings of all the directors that have done Mandalorian and have directed that and written for it.
Yeah, Deborah Chow.
Yeah, like it's just it has an all-star cast, and like the one above too, like the Bad Batch. I know Dave Filoni was doing Bad Batch, and he did Mando. Because I was watching that again today, and I was like, I forgot he did that, and he's done so well with Clone Wars and Bad Batch that he can do those because, like you said, they're recording their voiceovers. I mean, I remember listening to people that have recorded albums and recorded voiceovers and stuff that have finished at home because it's just so easy to do. Whereas this one, like Matt said, doing it in person with them spitting all over each other and sweating, and it's just not. I mean, it's just like sports. It's like baseball. These actors and actresses are constant contact with each other and stuff. So there's no way.
I will say though that my only hang up on this, I think that this could get started. A lot could change, but my only hang up with this is that if they are indeed filming in LA, I think that might be the thing that stops it, because actually Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings for Marvel is getting ready to start filming again in Australia. They got everybody over there. They quarantined. They're ready to go in person. No problem.
That was my thought. Yeah.
So maybe they can move. Maybe they can move the volume or the production to London or to Australia. Right. Maybe they can get this filmed over there.
Yeah, because I remember
somewhere where half the people don't think it's a hoax.
Yeah. Because like Tom Holland's obviously doing something. I don't know.
He's doing Uncharted.
Uncharted. Okay, so that's what he's doing. Because I know he's been tested. I mean, he's on Instagram a lot, so I see him getting tested and stuff. And so I was wondering what he was doing. But again, in Europe, like you said, Jordan, like they can move this production over to one. London's always been known to let Star Wars use their studios and stuff.
And the Batman is filming over there, and they're supposed to start again in September. So maybe,
right. So why not?
Maybe you move maybe you move your production over there or something.
Canada, because they're better anyway.
Yeah, I think it was like the city of Montreal or something had one positive.
Yeah, Toronto too.
Yeah, or maybe it was Toronto had one positive, while the Marlins, baseball team is 16 or whatever. It's crazy.
They're close to beating the Premier League in cases.
Before we move on from Obi-Wan, latest rumors have Hayden Christensen coming back as Anakin or Darth Vader in some sort of form. What's your guys' thoughts on that?
I'm super excited. I'm as excited as Hayden probably is. And that's how Hayden probably sounds when he's excited. But no, he's like, I loved him. Like, it's really painful to watch him in 2, but 3, like, he does such a good job of just having no emotion. And when he does get
Hayden's
angry,
a good actor. I think the issue is the script.
Right.
George wrote some very corny love dialogue that really, it's hard to give those words, like, to perform it so well. I mean, if you look at Ewan McGregor, he was the best part of the prequels, but he never was given any of those cringy love dialogue. So, maybe he would also not be able to pull that off. But Matt, what's your thoughts on Hayden Christensen maybe coming back?
It's pretty similar to you guys. Like, obviously, in 2, he's not really the best, or I don't know if he's just awkward because of the writing. But I loved him in 3. I really did enjoy him in 3. I don't have much knowledge as to what else he's really done. Because I don't know. Did he do a lot after Darth Vader? Because it doesn't really seem like he.
I think he was in. What was it, Jumper? That was a sci-fi. Whatever. That was a sci-fi thing, but I think he was also in some sort of love movie or romance movie that people said he was really good in. So again, I don't think it's him. Probably the thing.
I enjoy when they bring back characters from previous movies, especially when it's been so long. Whether it's Star Wars, I watched. I feel like there was something the other day I saw that was like a reboot or like just a little clip. But I mean, it's nice to get the original people, especially like they got all the original people for the most part in the new trilogy too.
Yeah.
So getting to see them and just see how they progress. So it's, I don't know, I would be pretty excited.
Now, do you think this is him? Like, what type of role do you think he would have? Is like Darth Vader, or we see him without the helmet again in his little room, or is it like Obi-Wan being haunted by memories of him, or like a apparition of him or something?
If he's gonna play Darth Vader, then it's just kind of like you could really put anybody in that.
Yeah.
If you're not gonna, but I guess the thing is that if it is, did the series say, is it post?
It's 8 years after 8 years after Revenge of the Sith.
So I would assume if he's playing the character, then it's probably some sort of scenario like you're saying, where either he haunts them in his nightmares, or there's like a Force ghost. Not Force ghost, but like there's something with the Force where he connects with the younger Anakin. Because if you're just gonna put him in the Darth Vader mask, like that's not. You don't really need him. Not to say that's. I'm not trying to sound rude to him, but like you don't. That's not really big news to me. Like, oh, he's gonna play Darth Vader, but also like you're never gonna see his face. So
yeah, they could probably just get the guy who did Vader in Rogue One or something.
And that Force connection too.
Yeah, I think it has to be something with the Force. Doing something, pulling memories or taunting him. I don't know, something.
It's just Hayden Christensen walking on loop into the Jedi Temple, killing small children, just on loop.
All right, so we're moving on from Obi-Wan. I am looking forward to that whenever it comes out.
I love Ewan McGregor now. I didn't realize, like, I saw Christopher Robin before I saw him as Obi-Wan, so I didn't really like understand the love of Ewan McGregor. And he's also in Beauty and the Beast, right? He plays Lumiere.
Yep. In the live action.
Like it's weird now because like now I'm like, oh, that's Ewan McGregor. Like that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's all I can think about now. I can't watch Christopher Robin and go like, it's a Winnie the Pooh Bear movie. I'm like, no, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi talking to Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, I wish. I have only known him from Star Wars. Like that was my first experience with Ewan McGregor back in like 1999 or whatever when I first saw Phantom Menace.
I love the clip like that's fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's from the Graham Norton show. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I think so.
I searched it one night because I was like, I just gotta find where this is from, and I love the story and how he says it.
So moving on to the films, Disney, due to COVID-19, has reshuffled their dates again. Marvel films are staying pretty much in the same spot they were, but since Disney has had Avatar 2 was supposed to come out in 2021 in December, and that got pushed back to 2022. And people were like, well, you're probably thinking, what happened to the Star Wars film that was in December of 2022? That's now December of 2023. The Avatar movie in 2023 is now 2024, and now Star Wars in 2024 is now 2025. So everything is shifted back a year. And after Avatar vacated the date for next December, Sony took that for Spider-Man 3. Not that it's not really like delayed. I know we're not a Spider-Man podcast, but it's not really Spider-Man's delayed. They took advantage of a better release date because that date is usually a pretty big date since, like The Force Awakens. The Sony knows those dates from the Jumanji films. They released those around that time, so they're getting lots of money, and they've done really well in that time frame. So Sony jumped on that. Not much to really talk about here. Taika Waititi did say he started working on writing his Star Wars film, so that wasn't supposed to be the 2022 film, which is now 2023. So maybe it is now, or maybe he's still working on the 2024. He still has to work on Thor: Love and Thunder, which Natalie Portman said they're going to start working on in March in Australia. So maybe he would be 2023 then, for Taika Waititi. But just some quick shuffle of the dates there. Now here's some interesting stuff. I don't know if you guys saw any of this until I mentioned it, or if you even saw any of this. Ray Park, who plays Darth Maul, not the voice of Darth Maul, he just plays the body of Darth Maul in Phantom Menace and in Solo. He's a martial artist, and he was dubbed over in voice in Phantom Menace, and he was dubbed over in Solo. There was a rumor that Maul is being considered for future shows. So one of the rumors right now is that, and this is not confirmed, so this isn't anything I've heard, just from people on Twitter that have sources, said that Solo 2 is somehow happening. I'm not sure if it's a movie or a TV show, but they're doing Solo 2 for Disney Plus with Alden coming back. And they're thinking maybe Maul would be in that. Maul is also supposed to be in maybe a few other Disney Plus shows they're talking about. But then, that same day that all these rumors came out, Ray Park uploads a video of him receiving...
when you say a surprise, I'm not expecting
a gift from his wife in a sexual manner. And apparently this was posted as revenge porn. He and his wife were in some sort of argument, and he posted this willingly. People originally thought maybe he was hacked. It doesn't seem that way now, because he hasn't even come out and said, like, I've been hacked. So, I don't know. It sounds like now Disney is thinking, well, we're going to move on from Ray Park due to that, and still go forward with Darth Maul plans.
So, if it's revenge porn, they're in an argument, so he posts the video as like a...
Yeah, it was uploaded for a few minutes. It was uploaded for a bit, and everybody's like, whoa, did everybody see Ray Park's Instagram? And then people went over to it, and they're like, oh, it's already gone. But it lasted 5 to 10 minutes, I think, up on there, and people...
That's impressive.
The wife, said, take that down. That's not... they're kind of going back and forth on it. And then people started making up lies that his kids were saying they were abused by him. And then the wife came out and said that's not true, but never said anything about the video being posted. So I think Disney's probably just going to make a clean break here. And one, if you're Ray Park, why are you doing that? You just destroyed your own career when you're probably about to get a bunch of Star Wars work, which just seems... amazing that somebody that's not
at someone, so you decide that that's the best course of action.
Yeah, let me go to Instagram where this is not even allowed and post this anyway. So Ray Park obviously does a lot of the martial arts stuff for Solo for Phantom Menace. That movie is 21 years old now. He's not as young as he used to be. He did do some motion capture for the Clone Wars Season 7. But Sam Witwer is pretty much the voice of Darth Maul at this point. He does the voice in the Clone Wars, the voice in Rebels, the voice on Battlefront, and the voice in Solo. I'm assuming they could just get Sam Witwer to probably shave his head, put on the makeup for him, and while it won't be 100% match, neither is Alden with Harrison Ford. So... at this point, yeah. I don't see any reason to not get rid of him. And you just have a stunt guy doing the stunt stuff. If he's doing stunt stuff, I mean. But it was a crazy span of a day because I'd heard all the rumors about the Darth Maul stuff, and people were talking about Ray Park and blah, blah, blah. And then we got to hours later, and then everybody's like, get rid of Ray Park. And I'm like, what happened in this span of a few hours? And then everybody's talking about it, and I was like, oh, geez.
Maybe the Star Wars franchise is going in a different direction. Maybe that's...
Yeah.
There's good money in that.
Oh, my. He should probably just create an OnlyFans or something. The Mandalorian, we're going to be moving on to that, but before we do, he is the show, not he. The show The Mandalorian is nominated for 15 Emmys.
It's insane.
We're going to name these Emmys here. They got Outstanding Character Voiceover Performance, and that's Taika Waititi as IG-11, nominated for that. Outstanding Production Design for a Narrative Program. Outstanding Cinematography for a Single Camera Series. Both of those are for half-hour shows. Outstanding Fantasy and Sci-Fi Costumes. Outstanding Single Camera Picture Editing for a Drama Series. They get 3 of those. That's for 3 different episodes. I believe 2, 6, and 8. That's what I read. Outstanding Prosthetic Makeup. Outstanding Music Composition, which we're going to talk about. Outstanding Guest Actor. That's for Giancarlo Esposito, who plays Moff Gideon. Outstanding Drama Series. This was the surprise. People did not think that this would be nominated for Outstanding Drama Series. Outstanding Sound Editing. Outstanding Sound Mixing. Outstanding Special Visual Effects, which it has to win with their groundbreaking visuals. Outstanding Stunt Coordination. For me, I think this wins. This can probably win Special Visual Effects, and I think prosthetics, costumes, and I would say music. That would be 4 out of 15. That wouldn't be bad. But I guess we'll see. Star Wars sometimes gets the shaft on these things. All right. So,
see, I mean, like I can see why Star Wars sometimes gets that, just based off of. I've always said, like, it's good movies, but I'm not sure if it would win a award.
Yeah, there's no way this wins Best Drama Series. There's no way.
No, but Mandalorian does have a lot of features that I feel like are better than the movies when it comes to the writing. And I mean, you can see here that it already has it for the costumes and visual effects. Like it felt like short movies, but they're done with better detail. And just the background itself, it could just be because it's made now and not back in the 70s or early 2000s. But
probably part of it, yeah.
Yeah, they felt a lot better than the movies even when I was watching it last night.
Yeah. Well, before we get to our breakdown of Chapter 1, The Mandalorian, we're going to take a quick break. All right, moving on to The Mandalorian. So we are breaking down Chapter 1, The Mandalorian, of The Mandalorian. This aired in quotation marks, aired on November 12th, 2019 on Disney+. It was created by Jon Favreau, written by Jon Favreau, directed by Dave Filoni, with music by Ludwig Göransson, if I pronounced that right. Here's the summary of Chapter 1. 5 years after the fall of the Galactic Empire, a Mandalorian bounty hunter hands his latest bounty to Greef Karga. Then he accepts an under-the-table commission on the outpost world of Navarro from let's just say from a client, I'm not going to pronounce that, with apparent Imperial connections, directing him to track down and capture an unnamed 50-year-old target. And we'll just use that part for the description. We don't want to go too much into it because we're going to break it down now. So I guess first, general thoughts before we kind of go. My notes here are kind of scene by scene. But just general thoughts of what it felt like when you first watched it, and then what you felt watching it, 8 months later.
Yeah, so I think like the one thing for me was that this was after Return of the Jedi, and then I didn't like Return of the Jedi originally. And going into Star Wars again, it was like, okay, I hope this is good. And Jon Favreau has always done a good job, in my opinion. He did well with Jungle Book. I loved Lion King.
He's a great UFC fighter.
Really great, good, yeah, really good in Friends. But I was really looking forward. Yeah, I was looking forward to it. And I can just remember after the first episode, like, and with the ending, I was just like, this is amazing. Like everything. All the hype that it had, it lived up to all the hype that I wanted it to and more. Because I was curious, how are we going to do a Star Wars story without Jedi?
Every week.
Was my biggest concern. Yeah, that's my biggest concern. Like, how do we get to that point where we can break away from the Skywalker saga? Because we hadn't really. I know with Clone Wars and stuff, I don't really watch it, but I know it sticks to somewhat of that storyline too. So it's
a
tough.
lot of the Clone Wars, while they have one-offs of like just clones or just bounty hunters, sometimes a lot of it does deal with Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Yoda, and all those characters.
Right. So how do we get to a point where we're comfortable talking just about the Mandalorian and what is the Mandalorian? If you don't know any of the origin stories. It was cool to follow that first episode.
Matt, now this was, you said you walked in and had only seen Solo and Force Awakens, and your roommate's watching this. What was your thoughts as to, you're just seeing random stuff happen?
In general, even before watching it, I'd heard a lot about it. To be completely honest, I didn't understand the hype about all of it. Mm-hmm. Even watching it, when I first watched it, it was cool. Like I said, I didn't have much information. I didn't really understand the characters, but I did enjoy the setting, and the music was really good. Like it's that, I don't know like how to describe it. It was that one music part where it's like sounds very quiet, and then it just has it's like a guitar string strum or something, where it's just like da-na, like, and the music and the just like hearing them talk here.
So you get this part.
That's one of them.
It's like that part.
Yeah.
It's like right. I skipped over it. It's like right here.
Yeah. So I mean, it was cool to watch it. Watching it, the characters I enjoyed, and then watching it again last night, though, I felt like I had a better perspective of it, and I enjoyed it a lot more last night, knowing a lot more of the story. So it was actually a lot more fun to see the characters last night while watching it, instead of basically not understanding what anything meant. I didn't know what Beskar was. I just like how the guy said it. I was like, oh man, this guy sounds cool. And even, as we can continue on, when we get further down the episode, I have like other bits and pieces of thoughts I had.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot that I didn't fully understand why everyone got so crazy excited about. I was like, that doesn't really make any sense. But after watching it last night, it's just the scenes, it all made more sense, but it also kept my attention a lot better than the first time.
Right. So for me, when this aired, I came home from work and just wanted to watch this show, and my dogs would not cooperate with me, so it took like probably an hour and some to watch this 40-minute. They ain't just them, barking or being excited. This was back when I used to have to travel to work and travel back, so they were in a crate the whole day, and they're excited to see me. But and I mentioned this during Rise of Skywalker, and I mentioned this during our talks about going to see new Star Wars. Seeing new Star Wars for me is always the weirdest experience every time. Like, I remember watching this, and I was digging it. The intro and everything is great. But I'm also sitting there thinking, like, this is so weird that I don't know what's going to happen, and that you're trying to, I'm trying to relax, but my body won't let me when I'm watching new Star Wars, as lame as that sounds. But, I remember watching The Force Awakens in theaters, and, right when it says a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I literally closed my eyes and took a breath, and I was like, it's actually happening. You're about to see new Star Wars. And it felt like a long time between a long time ago to then the bam, Star Wars and the trumpets and the music and all that stuff. It felt like such a long gap, but when you watch it in reality, it's like 3 seconds of time. And during that whole time of The Force Awakens, I'm sitting there like wondering, well, what's everybody else thinking of this right now? Or do I like what's going on right now? I'm having fun, I'm laughing, but do I like the idea of Han Solo falling down right here? And it's like, stressing me out sometimes. And that's kind of what The Mandalorian was like that first day. I was also stressed out because of my dogs. But, then you're sitting there watching it and you're like, you're starting to wonder, is this matching what I thought the show would be? And part of it, yes, part of it, no. And you're like, one, that's really short. I thought it would be a longer show. That's what everybody kept thinking. It was going to be an hour long. It was only 40 minutes, and then it gets even shorter from there, like pretty much every week. But watching it yesterday for the first time since the episode aired, I had a smile on my face pretty much the whole time because I already knew where the story led to, and it was just I was able to just take it in and live in the moment with it and not worry about what's going to happen next. I already know what's going to happen next. So I love the music that hit here. I love this part that I didn't realize I loved so much, or why did I love that so much? And I think about it and I say, well, now I know. Like as we get started here, the first thing that took me by surprise when this show premiered was this brand new Star Wars logo opening animation thing that they did with like the Kylo Ren helmet, the Stormtrooper helmet, the clone C-3PO R2, and the blue and the red. It was kind of like, I really liked that, but it was also kind of like, oh, I didn't expect anything new. So that was really cool. And the part that I think really sells it for me that this is Star Wars and it felt so like Star Wars as soon as I watched it is when Mando is on the icy planet to begin, which is called Maldo Kreis, in the bar or cantina, whatever you want to call it. That troublemaker is speaking Huttese, which is what Jabba the Hutt speaks. It's what a lot of people speak on Tatooine, in those original films and even in the prequels with Watto, speaking Huttese. And to me, that immediately felt like Star Wars because they didn't introduce us to just people speaking these, they could have just wrote that in English and performed it in English. But the fact that they, threw in the Star Wars language that a lot of people are familiar with, it wasn't a new language that nobody's familiar with. It was a language that has been in the movies since, episode 4 or 5. And it kind of reminded me of the beginning of Return of the Jedi when he's going to Jabba's palace and you're hearing them all speak Huttese and stuff. It felt really similar to that. And to me, that sold it as Star Wars instantly when I watched it 8 months ago. And it really brought it back again last night of, oh, this is why I really like that opening. It's because they took a language that we already know, or, that the fans are, I'm not saying know it like I can speak it, but that you hear it and you're like, that's Star Wars language, Doesn't sound Dothraki or something. You just immediately know it's Star Wars. But what was your thoughts, Logan, on the opening scene with the whole bar fight? It has my favorite line probably in the episode, which is, "I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold."
Yeah, that's the best part because he and it sets up. I was watching this this is the second time I've gone back and watched. Like you said it, when you watched Star Wars for the first time, when I would watch different movies that I didn't really have control of. It's kind of being on that roller coaster ride that you don't really know very well. You don't know which turn. It's like going on Space Mountain for the first time. You don't know which way it's going to turn in the dark.
You still don't know.
Yeah, you still don't know if you've ridden it about 100 times. And if you watch Mando 100 times, I'm sure you don't pick up on even some of the other stuff. But I think the coolest part for me was the fact that he doesn't talk the whole time. He walks in, he's really quiet. And it gave me flashbacks. I know your flashback, what you said is just kind of that, the way that he, they've got the speak, they've got the language and stuff. I think the thing that brought me back to Star Wars was it had that same feel of when you first met Chewbacca and them, when Solo comes in and he sits down and they sit down across from the guy in that bounty and he and he shoots him. It had that same kind of feel because when Mando walks up to the bar and he orders a drink and he's real quiet and it looks like he's just going to get pounded into the ground.
He uses the cup.
He slides the cup to him and he smashes him in the head with it. And then I'm like, all right, this feels like what it used, like what Star Wars felt like. It felt like Solo, because Solo doesn't have, he's got a blaster and then anything around him that he can use. Mando, same kind of thing. Like he's got weapons, but it's not like the Jedi. Like where you can use the Force, or you can do different things to
he
read
can't
minds.
de-escalate by saying
no,
I am not the bounty you're looking for.
Right.
He just needs to deal with it, right?
Yeah, and it gives him a very human aspect. And I think throughout the whole episode and everything, you just feel like you finally have that hero where he's not always going to come out on top because he uses the Force. Like in Star Wars, you get that some with the Jedi. Like you always feel like they're going to just win, whether it's now or later. With him, it was like, how do we set this up? And then the fact that, like, at first you kind of get this feeling, like I felt like today, I was like, at first when I watched it, I wondered if, like, and you're still kind of in the iffy spot with him, like, is Mando really a good guy or a bad guy? Or, like, you don't have a category to put him in?
Well, that's what I liked about it, is the guy that he saves, the Mithril, he thinks that he's there to save him, but he's actually there just to collect the bounty as well. And he's like, he's like, oh, I'll take these credits, thank you. And he's just like, drops the puck, and he's like, I'm here for you, dude.
Right. And we can talk about it later because you get more Mando, but with his backstory and stuff. But you do feel like, and Mandalorians don't really have emotions, kind of like the Jedi. It kind of feels like they're so suppressed because, like, it's been suppressed by all the things that have happened to him in the past. And I think that his feelings are, suppressed deep down, and they just don't come out because
they don't know how to. They don't know who to trust with, with the way that their people were, obliterated and betrayed at times.
Right. So yeah, those were my first thoughts. Was, man, this feels like Star Wars when he acts like Solo in the bar.
Matt, how about your thoughts? The bar scene.
Second time I went through, watched it. It definitely is a good opening scene. Again, it's really cool to see. Kind of, you guys already kind of touched on a lot of it, but it really is a good way to start the show because you really don't know what side he's playing on. You just kind of see him as a lone Mandalorian, or I guess a lone bounty hunter. So it definitely is it's a really good opening. I think I actually saw a preview of the opening scene before it came out. I think they were having like a preview on Disney on somewhere where you could actually see that first scene. So you got to see a lot of that beginning part. But yeah, I mean, you guys kind of went over a lot of it. It's a good way to open it because you don't really know where things are going yet. And which you kind of get to see later, obviously, in the episode, but you just get to see him in action, which is what I like. Like whenever the bits and pieces where you get to see him being who he is, I think were the best parts. Those were my favorite parts in the show. Just because that's what he's like. You watch Mandalorian, obviously it has a good plot line and it's pretty well written. But when you watch it, you do want to see him do what his job is.
Right.
And so to get to see that as like a start, you can see that he is good at what he's doing, but it's also nice to see him actually be the bounty hunter. So yeah, I really enjoyed the first opening part of it.
Yeah, then we get the title card, we get the theme song. It's the
theme song.
Yeah, and it's so different. It's not a it's not the usual Star Wars theme song. I'm glad that they didn't just get somebody emulating John Williams. They got Ludwig, who did the Black Panther score, which is also a really great score. He does the music for Community actually as well. Community, and he's friends with Donald Glover. He's part of Donald Glover's Childish Gambino, I think. So then, the Mando has his bounty. He's going to get a way to get off of to get back to his ship now. And, the guy brings over a speeder with a droid. This is where we get Mando's creed of no droids, which we'll learn about in later episodes. But I think this was one of the key things that I really like about The Mandalorian too, and especially watching it yesterday, is just how much stuff is set up in this episode that really pays off throughout the course of the 8 episodes. Pretty well. It's one of the best structured shows, and when you really think about it, of this episode, the show what The Mandalorian is really famous for, spoiler alert if you haven't watched past the first episode or been on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, is the memes of Baby Yoda, as they call him, or the child, as he's officially known as. And
the asset.
Which is really funny, though, is you kind of forget that he's not even in this first episode till the very end, and that this episode hinged all on, Din Djarin, who's the Mandalorian, and how good it was even without something that becomes that where you didn't know it was a special show until everybody starts making memes about Baby Yoda a lot of times and how popular it was. But this first episode really kicked it off and set things up that pays off tremendously. And now you kind of even learn that it wasn't even like a Baby Yoda wasn't even in it at this point. It's kind of stuff you kind of forget about with how much Baby Yoda took over pop culture, that he's not even really in this episode.
Right, and I think the whole thing too is like what you said. Everything that happens with Mando is in this first chapter is touched in every other chapter. Like, you can pretty much pull every single scene, and you can say, oh well, this is going to show up further down the way, like when he doesn't talk a lot, the character line that he just doesn't talk a whole bunch, unless he's,
and the bounty, the mithril, the mithril mentions, hey, is it true you guys never take off your helmets? Like, that sets it up there. Like, they introduce everything really well to tell you this is what this guy is without the main guy even telling you what it is.
Right, and I like how they lose the mithril to basically introduce the Mando, because Mando doesn't really talk because he's the
guy's talking a lot.
Yeah, and he talks the whole time about peeing and stuff, and
molting.
Molting. Sorry,
he hasn't molted since the solstice.
Empire, or something like that. But yeah, it's interesting to you can literally pull apart every single thing that Mando does in chapter 1, and it's called upon in the next chapters.
One thing I really like about this too is I really love the Razor Crest, which is his ship, and I love the name of it. I love the look of it. It just looks Star Wars. But when we're on the Razor Crest and we have the Mithril, who's played by Horatio Sands from SNL, he's talking about molting or whatever. He's trying to find a way off of the ship, or at least, I guess, exploring the ship while trying to use the excuse of going to the bathroom, or the vac tube, as they call it. And he finds his guns, and that's how we kind of get, hey, this guy's loaded with weaponry. But I love how it's almost horror-esque here, right? Like, the Mando is the good guy, is what people would think, because he's the main character of the thing. But you're kind of thinking, like, as the Mithril is looking through everything, and he sees all the other people in the carbonite, and then he just turns around, and there's Mando right there, like, bam! And the way that it's cut and directed just looks very, reminds me of, Jason and Friday the 13th just popping up behind, the main character that you want to survive. But this is our hero, it's our main character who's pulling that. And I just thought that was really cool. And then the next thing you know, he's thrown into the carbonite. He's got him. Any thoughts on that part? Did you guys like the Mithril? Was he too annoying, too talkative? I know some people thought he was, too jokey, but I thought it was good.
It felt like a comedic relief, honestly.
Yeah.
Especially when I first saw it, I was like, is this just some, I feel like I recognized the actor.
Yep.
Yeah, it's Horatio Sands.
And then I was like, and I was like, is this just a let's just have some fun part? Hey, we'll throw this guy in there. Maybe he really wanted to be in Star Wars. And they just made him into this character. But yeah, other than that, I do like the horror-esque scene where he pops up behind him. Again, it's just you still see the Mandalorian being the Mandalorian. Like, you still see him being that bounty hunter at this time, and you just don't really know what is going to be coming up next.
And it's so brilliantly written, too, because, like, if you really do listen to what he's saying, the Mithril, like, you really do, he's setting up Mando's backstory for him. Yeah. And there's reasons why he's asking all that stuff. Like, is it true? Do you want to take your mask off? Like, what are you doing? What's your job? What do you do here? Where are we going?
Is your ship pre-Empire? Is it that, like, he's asking all these questions, and it's a way to move it forward a bit while the Mando can keep his silent demeanor.
And where do you fit that in otherwise? I mean, it would be awkward. Like, it's better than having, like, on the screen, this is blah, 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 blah. Like, I get, like, the traditional Star Wars thing was to read it, but I'd much rather have somebody like that, like what Matt said, that comedic, because Mando's serious pretty much the whole time, and his one-liners are they're dry, but they're funny. But it's not on purpose, so...
All right. Any thoughts of that before we get on to the next part? Oh, one thing I did want to mention. The Mithril does mention Life Day, and that's a nod to the holiday special, which Jon Favreau is a big fan of. And George Lucas has pretty much vowed to never show that ever again. He didn't really have much to do with it. But it was a Christmas special that happened. I think it was right after the first one. I think it was 1978 or something that the holiday special happened, and Life Day is something that the Wookiees celebrated in that holiday special. So now we get to Navarro, which is the planet that we'll come back to a few times, but this is where the guild is, right? And this is where he meets with Greef Karga, and who's played by Carl Weathers, and I think he does tremendous here. But one thing I did want to mention too, like the first time I'm watching this, you're trying to figure out what the Mando is doing, right? Like you see him have that like tracker thing, you see him put the puck on there, but you don't really understand the process of it. And as I was watching it this time, when they start talking about more of this stuff, I was able to understand it better. And I guess, watching the second time, the tracker is the fob. That's where it tells you where they are. He mentions needing a chain code when he's with the client. And we find out that the last 4 digits of a chain code is their age or something. And we get the pucks are where it tells you, it shows them what they look like. It tells them, it's like a want it poster, is how I would liken that. But I just remember, like that first time when you're watching it, you're kind of focusing like, okay, wait, what's going on this time? And now that you're able to like you watched it already, you're like, okay, I understand this a little better now. And I love the way that they kind of just throw you in though. And just act like you should already know that this is how bounty hunting works post-Empire. But Greef Karga tries to pay with Imperial credits, and, the Mando tells him, that doesn't get you jack squat around here anymore with the Empire falling. And this is kind of, I would say, if you're new to Star Wars or if you just watch the movies, this is where you realize, oh, this is after Episode 6, right? Like, I don't think there's any other time it tells you that. But right here, it's like, hey, the Empire fell. We don't even use their material, their credits anymore.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool to see, like, like, I know people have talked about it before, and I agreed with, like, what it was saying was, now that the Empire's fallen, there's a new order that's coming in, and everybody is kind of jockeying for position. Like, you've got different people hiding different places, the guy that wants the asset. Like, people have now motives that they're not afraid of the Empire anymore, so you do start to see more of an outlaw kind of thing, because that's what it kind of reminds me of. Like, it reminds me of space western, is what Mando really reminds me of. Like Red Dead and Star Wars somehow met.
Man, I want a game like that. That would be really good. Any thoughts, Matt, before we move on to the client and that job? Just anything about the rest of this?
Not too much. During that scene with Greef is where I really started enjoying. It sounds weird, but how they said words. I love how they said puck. I don't know why. I was just like, enjoy them saying puck, and I was like, okay, I like how these guys talk. But yeah, watching it the second time, I did kind of understand a lot of what they were talking about. Way more than the first time. Even like you mentioned, the small parts. I mean, you already kind of mentioned the fob and basically why, like, he first asked for Puck and he said there's no Puck. Like, this is a different type of
in person or direct.
Yeah, it's traditional. Yeah.
And honestly, when we get to the next part with the client, I love how he talks.
Werner Herzog, man,
he's great.
Because I can see you have the bounty hunting as a complicated profession. I love that line.
Yeah.
They use that in all the trailers too. It is such a good line. Let's get over to that. So he asked for more jobs because he wants more money.
Mm-hmm.
And Grief says he can't give him everything he's got because he's got other clients. He's got other people in the guild that have to get their money as well. But he says that there's one kind of off the grid, no Puck. You have to meet them in person, and Mando takes the job. And he meets with who's known as the client. He doesn't really have a name until probably he'll get an action figure at some point and a backstory in a book or something. And they'll probably give him a name then. But he's played by Werner Herzog, very famous, director, and has done tons of stuff. And the fact that he's in Star Wars is amazing. And again, Werner and Carl Weathers, like, they're giving these difficult lines that could sound terrible if delivered oddly, but those two chew that scenery and they act like this is real. They make me believe that what they're saying is legit and real. And so we meet Werner Herzog and the client, and he says he has this bounty that he needs alive. He does then mention, but bounty hunting is a complicated profession, so we'll take proof of termination. But Dr. Pershing comes in, and he's the one that we're not really sure exactly what his role is here, but he would be the one doing any sort of... He's the one that really wants this bounty for... I think they explain it as he's got some sort of special ability, which we now know is the Force when we get to that. And he's very adamant that the bounty be brought back alive, but Werner's like, take it or leave it, right? So we get Werner Herzog giving him the Beskar steel as like a down payment to prove that he's got what it takes to give him once he brings the bounty back. And this is where, again, Mando is only giving a tracking fob and the last 4 digits of the chain code. Mando remarks that this means all he gets is the age, and the target is 50 years old. So, now there were rumors building up to The Mandalorian that a member of Yoda's species would make an appearance. Nobody knew it was going to be what it was. One reason why nobody thought that is because George Lucas was very tight-knit on Yoda, so much so that Yoda's species doesn't even have an official name because they're supposed to be so rare, and he didn't. And anytime somebody wrote a book, he'd be like, you can't go into his species. So nobody thought it would be like where he's like the sidekick of the show. And even then, I kind of put that out of my head and forgot all about that rumor. And I'm like, okay, target's 50 years old. Let's go get him. Right? Let's go get him. So the Mando takes that Beskar steel to the underground Mandalorian hideout. And that's where we get the intro to the Armorer. And she'll become a bigger part later on in the show. And this is where we kind of get some big flashes of Mando's past. And he mentions he was a foundling. And what that means is, he's not a real Mandalorian. He wasn't born a Mandalorian. These are, Mandalorians brought him in. They found him and brought him into their culture. And we get some flashes. I'm not sure if it's here that we get the flashes with the battle droids or not. I couldn't really see them this time. I know they make appearances in later episodes, but when we look at this is taking place during the Clone Wars that Mando is a little kid with his parents running and the Mandalorian saving him. But I love the way that this scene's done too, with the music, and when it's like, you know, when she's hitting the armor that she's making for him, and it kind of flashes then to his past. And what was your guys' thoughts on? Was it clear enough with all of that, with, you know, the foundling part? I didn't really pick up on that the first time I watched it. Yeah, I picked up on that in other episodes, because she mentions, you know, like this Beskar steel is plenty. It'll help foundlings, you know. And he's like, I was once one.
What are the people called in Game of Thrones? Aren't they called foundlings too?
Wildlings.
Wildlings.
Yeah. I was like, what the heck? I was really confused when I heard foundling. But no, I knew, like, I started to go, oh, he's the child. Like, he's the child in that.
He's not the child.
Right, no.
Yeah, he's the child in the
which can get confusing. Well, yeah. But, no.
Baby Mando.
Yeah, I knew that was flashing back to, obviously, his past. And the blasting, and just, again, like you said, the reason why it's up for so many of the nominations is because there's stuff, just little stuff like this, like the beating of that armor, when she's working on that armor and welding it.
With the music,
stuff.
it's
with the music
well,
and the flashback and the blasters and stuff, back to his childhood. And the best thing, like Jordan and I know I talked about this, and Matt probably agrees too, is for a guy that wears a mask that has no facial expression on it, you can tell what Mando's thinking, which is really just, kudos to their writing. Yeah. Kudos to their filmography, like just the way that they cut scene and stuff like that, and cut back and forth between him and his facial expression and stuff like that. It's brilliant. So,
Matt, as somebody that was not familiar with Mandalorians, and
yeah,
they're like, so was this making you want more of this flashback? Were you kind of upset it didn't go full into it in this one, or were you knowing it was gonna come back later?
Yeah. Both times, I don't really have much of a thought on the flashback. The second time watching it, I definitely understood what was happening a lot more. I understood the whole point of melting the Beskar steel. I understand how the armor works, and the importance of what it is. So that I understood it better, but even then, it just felt more as like a small little flashback to give you a little backstory on him.
To tease it a bit, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't really feel like it was, hey, you really need to understand this.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like this is necessary for the episode. It just felt like, we're going to put this in there so you have a little bit of idea as to what he was, or like a little bit of idea as to where he came from. So, I mean, like, it's nice to definitely, when you don't know the character, to see what the character, or where he kind of became from, or where he was, as a kid. But, I mean, in the end, it just felt like somewhat of a filler scene that just kind of helped you with a little bit of the background. I like the scene, nothing against it, but, I mean, it didn't feel like a groundbreaking thing that I was watching.
Well, you see, I remember the first time I was watching this, and when they kind of stopped, I thought they were going to kind of launch into a bigger flashback. When they stopped and didn't, I was like, I want more of that. Like, show me what this guy was about. And I figured we'd get that later. But it was also at that time, I was kind of impatient because, these were released weekly, where you're like, okay. And we had to wait pretty much 7 or 8 weeks for that answer of, like the full flashbacks and stuff.
Yeah.
Weren't the first 2 episodes like Wednesday, Saturday kind of thing?
It was Tuesday, Friday.
Okay, I remember because
it
those
launched
2 were
on
like
a Tuesday.
Yeah, because
Disney Plus launched on a Tuesday, and then every episode was a Friday, except for around the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
So now we fly to the desert planet Arvala 7. This is where the bounty, the target, the asset is kept. And this is where he runs in with a very dangerous blurg here that gives him a lot of trouble. And he is saved by, Nick Nolte's character, which I could not... I used to be able to pronounce this. Is it Keel? Quill? It's Kuiil.
It's Peter Quill.
Yeah, Peter Quill.
Yeah, Peter Quill, yeah. I think it's Quill.
Yeah. So we meet our little Ugnaught from, they were also seen in Empire Strikes Back on Cloud City. And we get an Ugnaught here by Nick Nolte, and he gets the line that I thought was the most memorable of the episode when it first aired, and I was like telling my sister, make a shirt of this now. Mm-hmm. He says, "I have spoken."
Uh-huh.
And he says that quite a few times, and I just love that, the way it's delivered. It's almost comedic at times, when he says it a few times. He's just like, "I've spoken, that's it."
Yeah, it ends a conversation.
That's what I'm gonna say when that's what I'm gonna say when like my kids back talk to me. I'm gonna be like, "I have spoken." But what are your thoughts on the blurg scene? That little scuffle and our introduction to this guy. This is part of the episode. When I first watched it, I was like, "Wow, this is kind of like jumping really quickly." He's learning to ride the blurg. He's already going to get the asset. I thought maybe that might take a little bit more episodes, but we understand why when we get to the end here. But what were your kind of thoughts on this? Did it feel a little out of place, or was it, were you just on the ride at this point?
Yeah, I think I think you obviously needed some more action, because then there was it's slower, and that's how it works. It's real high action and slow and high and slow. And I think the best part of that is introducing him, because you do feel like he's going to play a bigger part once you get to, later episodes. But you also felt like Mando, the biggest thing for my takeaway with when he was wrestling with it, was that Mando is vulnerable to these monsters, and not like the Jedi, where the Jedi probably would have sliced that thing up in about 2 seconds.
The peacekeeping Jedi would just destroy that thing.
Right, sorry, little animal, but Mando struggled with him. So
yeah,
I think it shows that Mando still struggles with being a Mandalorian, because
that's a good point, Logan. It shows us that while he was badass with people, you kind of get this real threat of, well, okay, he's not invincible, and also, yeah, like you said, he's learning, but he's not like. Yeah, he looked badass earlier, but he's not totally badass, because you have to set that up, or else at that point it's like, oh, you expect him to just kind of trump every... And I think we can kind of talk about this next week too, but I think this kind of helps set something up in episode 2 where he comes against another beast and has trouble as well. So he's not like this, the way that people in the fandom always kind of thought, oh, Mandalorians are so special, they're so great, they're gonna just wipe the floor with everything.
Especially because you get so much from Boba. Like, Boba's such a badass that you just really think that all Mandos are like that. And Jango has some more, like, he's a little bit unpolished, like Mandalorian.
I mean, like Boba's a little bit of a badass, but I mean, he gets beat by a blind Han Solo by accident.
Yeah. But Han is just like a badass anyway, so how can you really?
Yeah. Oh man. How about you, Matt? You like this scene at all, or is it like, let's get to the end here?
It actually, more so the first time I saw it, I was actually pretty unimpressed, because I was expecting him to be this masterful. Yeah, like I thought he was gonna be like this big badass, and then he's getting beat by this thing that looks like a prehistoric fish with feet, and it's getting controlled by the Nick Nolte character, and I was like, okay, like was that supposed to be like, was I supposed to be impressed? I didn't really fully understand it, and still, even the second time, it again felt kind of, I'm not saying it. Knowing what happens, I know it's not filler, because I know that the Nick Nolte character actually has a fairly decent role continuing down the line. But watching it without knowledge of what's happening, it seemed very, again, like filling in more details. I figured if we're gonna have this bounty hunter, he's gonna go around and kicking people's ass. Not getting whipped by the first thing he sees outside of the guild area, or where he was getting his assignments. So I was slightly underwhelmed. Not so much further down the line looking back at it, or even watching it last night. It's definitely a better scene because you also kind of see him you see that he can interact with people and not be, I mean, like, he's not exactly the nicest guy, but like you can see that he can interact with people, and it's not just like him as a loner. Like he is going to meet people along the way that can help him, and he actually
help him grow.
Yeah. So definitely the second time it was a lot better than the first. So again, don't mind the scene. It's just part of it's not what I'm watching the show for. So
no, I agree with you though. The second time I watched it, I liked it a lot more because the first time I watched it, right? Like, okay, so you got to understand the way that I was hyped up for this show is also merchandise, trailers, all this kind of stuff. I thought this would be a show about not just the Mandalorian, but about this crew, right? Like Nick Nolte's character. I was like, they got Nick Nolte to play it, and he's already done at this point of the episode. Like, I kind of thought, like, I was like, he's got to come back, right? And we go episodes without really seeing. I mean, we see him again next week, but like then we go a long span without seeing him again. And then I was like, Gina Carano, who is playing, oh man, why am I blanking on her name? But yeah, she's playing. Hold on, I have it right here.
I just saw her name last night when I was looking up stuff.
Gina Carano, Cara Dune. Yeah. So yeah, we got her introduced in like episode 3 or 4, and it took a while to get to that. And I was like, they kind of build a lot of these characters as like being all like main characters. And I kind of thought like after the first one, I was like, okay, so yeah, we're gonna get here's our introduction to Kuiil, you know, and then it's like he's like, all right, see you later, I've spoken, and he walks away, and I'm like, are we already done with Nick Nolte? And same thing with IG-11 here coming up. IG-11 gets shot at the end, and I'm like, what, are we done with him already? That's Taika Waititi right there. Yeah. So we'll get to that. This is one of the best parts of the episode for me. We get to the village or the outpost. The village or the outpost here. IG-11. I love his movements with the spinning, the head spinning, the body is rotating, the arms are flailing, his guns are going off. Love that. He's a badass. He's just taking on all these people by himself. And then Mando and him team up.
He's got some comedic relief in him during that scene, which I'm a big fan of, when everything's all serious and he's like, he's saying his protocol is to self-destruct, and I was like, okay. Even the first time. And
not only that, but also when he's like killing all these people, and he's like, by the rules, I have claimed him. You're supposed to bring him out now, you know? Right. And he's just like, bam, 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 shooting all these people. And we get to, the Mando introduces himself to him, and he gets shot, and he's like, dude, I'm in the guild as well. Now, are they in the same guild? Because here's something that I am kind of pondering here, and I haven't really seen a straight answer. But IG-11 mentions when they see the child that, you know, he was told to bring him in dead. But we had seen Werner Herzog say alive, but dead is okay. He wasn't adamant on dead. So who is sending IG-11 to just go terminate him? That's what, like, are they coming from the same? Did Werner send him as well? That's what I wonder. Like, do we have a clear answer on that? Because it seems like two different type of approaches there.
Yeah, that is weird. That I never really thought about that, because you're right, and I did notice that there was a difference in the way that they were told, and maybe because he's just a droid, or maybe like what you said, the scientist wants him alive or whatever he is, and then the other character wants him dead and doesn't care. He just wants the bounty. But yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know if maybe this was ever mentioned, but could he have been sent as more of like an insurance policy?
I think we get the idea here that Mando is probably one of the last ones to have been sent out here. You know, Nick Nolte's character says, you know, hey, many of these people have come here and I've led them there, but they all die, or they're not good enough. And I really liked Mando's response of, then I don't want your help. Because it's like, you keep leading all these people to their death. But Yeah, I don't know if it's like different guilds are all sending their people for this bounty because of some reason, or if the client was the one that sent all of them. It's not very clear, but maybe we learn more about that another time, or maybe we're forgetting something and we hear about it later. But Mando and IG-11 team up. They hijack the big gun that was just brought in, and that was just a really cool scene.
Yeah.
And I also love when they're trying to figure out how to open the door, and they just both turn and look at the gun.
Their heads go like that, yeah.
And the next thing you know, the door's going down. They're just standing in the doorway. It's a really nice shot, too. And this is where we get the reveal of Baby Yoda, the child. And IG-11 is dead. He gets killed because Mando doesn't want to kill the child. Part of it because he was told not to, but also part of it, I think, is this feeling that he shouldn't probably kill a baby.
Yeah, he does mention the whole like a baby, and then the IG-11 says 50. species age differently.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a good point. He he also was told there is a better price for being alive.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the end? I never noticed this. Like, I've seen so many cutouts of this, and they're silhouettes. They're on shirts because Mando's standing in front of the child in his little hovercraft thing. Did you guys notice at the end he takes a finger and he does when you do that to a baby? I was like, I didn't realize that at all until I saw it the second time. That he tries to play with him.
Yeah. That's a cute scene, and I love this too because for hardcore fans and stuff, I don't know how much like casual fans know how old Yoda is. I know they mention it in like Empire Strikes Back, but he's like 900 some years old by the time that he dies. So the fact that 50 years old is a baby, that kind of makes sense. But it also makes you wonder then, how did he get to that outpost? How did he leave his family? Has he been... One, it would suck to be a parent of a Yoda species where you're taking care of this thing for 50 years and it still isn't old enough to take care of itself.
But also, how much is known about that species? Because wasn't that the big...
Yeah, there's not much known about it.
The reason it was such a big deal, because there isn't a lot known about a species. Again, the first time I watched it, I was like, "Oh, it's a little Yoda."
There was two Yoda species, two aliens of Yoda species, in the movies, Yaddle and Yoda, and we don't know anything about them. Like I said, they didn't even give their species a name. George Lucas was very coy on that, but yeah, that's why it was kind of like, everybody was like, "What? We're gonna get Yoda species in this?" And the mind-blowing thing is that's 50-year-old Baby Yoda.
And we're obviously going to get more now. Like, we're going to get an unraveling of what he was. So that's exciting, because for so long... And the other thing, too, is that what people were talking about, just like they said that combined that... I didn't know this, but combined Baby Yoda's got way more time on screen than actual Yoda does, like in the prequels, I think it was.
Really?
So it was like, it was like the only if they hadn't done like obviously Phantom through Revenge, that he had way more time on screen than actual Yoda does, which is interesting because they said if you look back, all that Yoda merchandise back in the day sold way more than some of the even Luke and them.
Yeah.
Which is so funny because Mando literally feels like the sidekick now because Baby Yoda became so iconic.
Yeah.
That might be my biggest pet peeve after the first episode.
Yeah.
I was like, this show isn't the Baby Yoda show. This is... I was like, and this was before even really understanding Star Wars. I was like, this isn't the point of the show. The point of the show is Pedro Pascal as Mandalorian. It has nothing to do with the asset. They don't even...
That's what they wanted you to think. That's what they wanted you to think. The real show...
Baby Yoda.
The real show is Baby Yoda teaching Mando how to love.
Well, that's not what I'm watching for.
Well,
some kind of Hamilton kind of thing, man. Some kind of story existing on the outside we're not aware of.
The end of the first episode is it's a good ending, and we'll get to the next few episodes, which I'm not a big fan of the next few. But
episode 2 and 3 are so good.
It has a lot to do with just the. I don't know why I don't know if it's the character development part. I'm just not a huge fan of, but it's that's the amount of publicity the Baby Yoda got over what the point of the show was frustrated me.
Hey, you make something cute, people will make memes of it, man.
Yeah, Ashley doesn't watch it at all.
I felt like every episode was, what's the next Baby Yoda meme?
Yeah, but I don't think they did that on purpose, because I don't think they knew it was going to be as big as it was.
Just wait till Baby Chewbacca shows up.
That would be so cute, too. Let's do it.
Even to this point, they still don't have much information on Baby Yoda, right?
Yeah, at the end of the season, he's supposed to go and find his family. I don't know if it means his family or if they mean the Jedi. But yeah, he's gonna go looking.
Sounds like the Jedi because who did they say that was it? Darth Maul that was rumored to be in the next season.
No, it was Ahsoka. Ahsoka's rumored to be in it.
That's right.
And, a few of the Rebels characters are rumored.
And then
to be
maybe they're the ones that are looking out for him.
Well, I was thinking maybe he's trying to get in touch with a Jedi and stumbles across, Ahsoka or somebody on their quest, and he's like, "Hey, I got a little baby that is Force sensitive."
Yoda.
Yeah,
but
he doesn't know Yoda. But Ahsoka knows Yoda. She'd be like, "Holy shit, this is little baby Yoda."
Wouldn't Baby Yoda would have been alive during pretty much all the movies?
No, he's dead.
Baby Yoda.
No, yeah.
It would have been born before Phantom Menace, I think.
Yeah.
If you look at it, because the Empire only reigned for.
Well, if he's 50,
the Empire only reigned for 19 years or so.
So he was definitely alive.
And then Phantom Menace was 10 years before that, so that's only 30 years plus the 5 between 6 and this. It's 35.
Yeah, he's about 15, 10, 15.
If they have years like normal people.
They do,
Then I guess so, technically, I guess that would make sense as to how you could really throw in her. She clearly, I guess, wasn't got in Order 66, so.
No, yeah, she survived.
And I think the it might be, and Mando doesn't know this, obviously, but I think we're going to get into that storyline where that they think that because Yoda was the Master Jedi, that this thing could be, the rebirth of all the Jedi that were killed. So
that'd be interesting because even after Rise of Skywalker, Baby Yoda's only 80 years old out of a creature that lives 900 and some. That he's fairly young. He could be. They could make a whole more universe of Jedi where he could be Rey's apprentice almost.
Right.
Well, Cal Kestis, he tore up the damn thing to tell me where all the Force sensitive kids are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where they would have found Baby Yoda.
Yeah. Sure.
Throw him in there. I want Cal Kestis in The Mandalorian.
That would be cool, actually. That'd be cool.
I mean, Night Sister Marin.
Yeah.
Yes. Bring them all in. You know what? And that's not out of the realm of possibility now, because before we never thought that we would get live action Clone Wars characters, and we're starting to get those. We never thought we would have references, but Darth Maul showed up in Solo, and that was kind of the barrier that broke down the wall between animation and live action, and now it's continuing. So maybe we do get live action Cal at some point, and BD.
I'm for it.
It could be that dude from Riverdale. He looks like he.
Or it could be the guy that actually plays.
Yeah.
Cameron Monaghan.
Is it no?
It's his
that's not
face.
the guy from that's the guy from Riverdale, the redhead.
No. I don't think he's in Riverdale.
Look
he
up
was in
the redheaded.
Shameless.
Okay, yeah. Look up the redheaded kid from Riverdale. He looks like Cal. I don't remember. It's Archie.
Oh, okay.
Archie from Riverdale. I think he would be. I mean, obviously the guy with the fade, but I don't know if that guy's really. Is he a screen actor?
No, it's not him. Yeah. Cameron Monaghan was. He's in a lot of TV shows and.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, put him in.
So yeah, it's just him.
Let's do it.
He actually played the Joker in Gotham, but. All right. So just last notes here. We visited 3 planets in this episode: Maldo Kreis, which is the icy planet; Navarro, which is the planet with the guild; and Arvala 7, which is the desert planet that had the blurgs and the child. So real quick, I guess favorite. It's always one of our dogs.
It's a DoorDash.
Aurora wants to be part of the episode now.
Yeah, she's like.
Oh, it's all right. This is all getting cut out.
As I say, give it a second once she's back up with her food. I'm thinking is she likes Rachel more, so
does she?
More worried. Yeah, so when she leaves, it's a bigger deal.
She likes me more.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, so I was thinking. You guys mentioned doing favorite characters and stuff, so I wrote down favorite character, favorite planet from this episode, and favorite line from this episode. So for me, my favorite character is the Mandalorian. Duh. It's the name of the show. My favorite planet was Maldo Kreis, the icy planet. I don't know if it's something about icy planets, but with city typescape, because I love Maldo Kreis, and I loved Kajimi in Rise of Skywalker. And my favorite line, as I said earlier, is "I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold." Just an ultimate badass line. How about you, Logan? Did you have a favorite Mandalorian character, favorite planet, favorite line?
Yeah, Mando's my favorite in the first chapter. The planet was Maldo Kreis was
That's
mine
nice
too. Yeah. Like you said, I do like when they put in the ice, like what you said, and Rise of Skywalker, Kajimi is my favorite setting in all of Star Wars. And then my favorite line is actually so when he goes in to get the assignment to find the asset, the stormtroopers come out and there's 4 of them and they're all pointing guns at him and he raises any guns and they go, "Drop your weapon, there's 4 of us," and he goes, "I like those odds."
He's so awesome.
So that really, like, just, I mean, and just like his voice, it's like Kylo's. Like, I could listen to it all day, just because it's so unique and raspy, and it's just, it sets him up as just being a complete badass. And then he goes and gets beat up by like a water hog or something. Puma kicks his ass.
Matt, your favorite planet, line, and character of Chapter 1?
First 2 are same, Mandalorian and the planet, which I forgot the name of already.
Maldo Kreis. Yeah.
Yeah. But my favorite line is the bounty hunting is a complicated profession, but I think it's because of how he says it and how many times I've heard it. Like, honestly, I would easily tell you that when Grief says puck, it also might be one of my favorite lines.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just the vernacular.
And it's funny, too, like, Carl Weathers knew nothing about Star Wars, and he's Grief Karga. Like, when you watch the Disney Gallery series, he's like, I know nothing about this stuff, but he sells it, man.
Well, it's like Billy D. Williams. He's got no clue what Star Wars is. He only knows he's Lando, and he knows who Han and Chewbacca are. Because when you listen to their roundtables and stuff, like I loved when Rise of Skywalker did their panel, he has no clue what's going on. No clue.
Hello, what have we here?
Right, yeah. Hello there.
But yeah, I just love how he says it. He's just like bounty hunting. It's like his accent.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes you kind of scared. You're like, crap. This is going to be a little intense here, isn't it?
Love it. So that's our episode 1, chapter 1 recap of The Mandalorian. We'll be doing these weekly here to catch us up before season 2 of The Mandalorian premieres on Disney Plus, which is thankfully not impacted by COVID-19. They had finished filming before that, and Jon Favreau and Bob Iger and all these people have said, Dave Filoni has said that they are, hard at work on making sure it meets that time frame. So
take that, COVID.
You didn't get us this time.
You didn't completely screw us over.
Probably kill the guy that's delivering the thing. Get ran over the film or something to the streaming service.
I don't think they even use film that much.
Trump's
probably just send it in an email.
He'll shut down the streaming services because they don't like him.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Any other last thoughts before we get out of here?
What do you guys think?
Yeah, there you go.
What do you think Mando looks like? Like, I know that's like the big, question. I wonder what he looks like under that mask.
I mean, they show us at the end of the show.
Well, we haven't gotten to that episode yet.
Oh, yeah. I think he looks a lot like Pedro Pascal. Is what I'm going
to go with Jordan on that one. What's the guy? What is he? Who does he play in Game of Thrones? What's that character? Oberyn, yeah. I think he looks like Oberyn. Yeah.
What was his name? The
family name's
he was the snake, right?
Yeah.
Or what it was the mountain versus the snake, right?
Right.
Or the viper. It was the viper.
There you go.
Okay. Well, I think he looks a lot like Pedro Pascal. We'll find out in episode 8, I guess. What was that? Were you gonna light yourself on fire?
There's a lighter on the table, so I was like,
gonna eat it.
He's just gonna end it right now. He's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Matt has spoken.
The tribe has spoken.
There you go.
Man, I wish we had a nice theme song like the Mando to just play us out. But that is our episode. We'll catch you all next week for Chapter 2, The Child. Thanks for listening.
I have spoken.
It's over, Anakin!